Tonight on Top Story, Ghana Tourism Authority gives green light to drinking bars, restaurants and hotels to reopen despite President's directive banning public and social gatherings.
It was during the lockdown period that we said you cannot entertain sitting guests. So you could only do takeaway and pickups. For EI64, you could go ahead. But what we've added on is that you have to keep the social distancing. So currently EI65 is expired. EI64 is in place.
We'll hear reactions as people prepare to storm the beer bars, and also we'll hear from the Ghana Tourism Federation as the country's COVID-19 cases rises to 5,127. That's coming up on Top Story, brought to you by Bone Savings and Loans. Your success is our passion. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready, and Gasm, the nation builder. And tonight, drinking bars, as we call them, restaurants and hotels can now open fully. That's the latest from the Ghana Tourism Authority to operators in the hospitality industry. In the past months, many of the operators in the sector have shut down as part of measures to contain the spread of the COVID-19. President Akufo-Addo has announced sweeping measures, including a ban on public and social gatherings. My colleague, Joseph Opoku-Gapo, joins me in studio with details of the statement from the Ghana Tourism Authority. Take us through it, Joseph.
So it comes under the heading Directives for Hospitality Sector, May 11 to May 31, 2020. And it says, following the President's address to the nation on Sunday, 10th May 2020, the Ghana Tourism Authority, under the auspices of the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, issues the following guidelines for the hospitality industry. And then it goes on to give the details. There are 5 set guidelines. 1, all hotels can operate as normal and host their guests subject to specified elevated hygiene protocols and social distancing. So hotels can operate normally once they are observing social distancing protocols. Point number 2, food chains and restaurants can operate sit down as well as pick up and delivery services while observing appropriate social distancing and also hygiene protocols. That's the second point. The point number 3 is where it says all 9 clubs, however, remain closed. So the foods and the beverages and all of the drinking bars can operate, but all 9 clubs remain closed. And point number 4, that's the drinking bars one. It says drinking bars can operate while observing appropriate social distancing and hygiene protocols. And in the 5th point, it says, in all situations, hospitality facilities should observe the staff management and workplace protocols and precautionary measures on public gatherings with the view of achieving social distancing and hygiene protocols as spelled out in the imposition of restrictions or the coronavirus disease pandemic instrument 2020, that's the EI64. And this is issued by the Ghana Tourism Authority on the 11th of May 2020.
So that's the statement from the Ghana Tourism Authority. Is a statement that will be interrogating shortly, knowing that the President had extended the ban on social gatherings up to the end of the month of May. But we can hear from the Chief Executive of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Akwesi Agyemang, speak to us earlier on the Joy News Desk.
It was during the lockdown period that we said you cannot entertain sitting guests. So you could only do takeaway and pickups. For EI64, you could go ahead. But what we've added on is that you have to keep the social distancing. So yes, you can admit guests to come in, but you must ensure that the social distancing protocols are adhered to. 1, you must ensure that your staff are wearing the necessary PPEs to prevent the spread of the disease if any of them are infected. So those are the things that we sought to clarify. So currently EI65 is expired. EI64 is in place, and that really allows for them to operate. We are part of the National COVID Task Force that includes the Ghana Health Service, the military, the Ghana Police Service, NADMO, the ambulance, NCA and other agencies, FDA and the rest. And so these directives, as issued to the public and also to the operators, have also been sent to the operational team. And so the police are very clear in their minds what they would expect if they, for example, get to a drinking bar. We also have inspectors who do the inspections for licensing and regulating these enterprises are also in town monitoring the situation. And we've also asked that the general public assist. So if you see any suspicious behavior and people are not adhering to these protocols, you can call into the national call center and then make some complaints, and then we'll follow up through that chain.
So that's the chief executive of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Akwesi Ajiman. Since then, we've been hoping to raise him for a live interview on Top Story. It's been unsuccessful, but we're still working the lines to do so. But the president of the Ghana Tourism Federation, Bella Apawu, has welcomed the directive. She spoke to Gift Anduapia on the Pulse.
Since we were actually not expecting some of these, people are calling to be sure, and we are excited about it.
Have you done any kind of research or any, asking around, so to speak, to find out whether people are actually willing to patronize such services in these times?
Yes, that is one reason. You can open, but as to whether it's to be patronized, that is the other issue. But then the information is that you can open but observe the social distance. And we are trusting and believing that the sitting arrangement now has to change in bars and restaurants, where we have to observe all the protocols. And so we are excited. We've gone around one of few bars. Restaurants already are in operation, except that you cannot sit more than 25.
Exactly.
And so we've gone around, and most bar operators are quite excited.
Okay.
Now it's left to the public to actually observe the protocol. The sitting arrangement at few bars that we have gone around, actually the sitting arrangement is quite impressive. And so we think that it's now left with the public to observe them, not that sitting down and drawing the chair to be closer to a friend. And that is what the bar operators are actually emphasizing, that seriously we have to observe the protocol.
That's Bella Apawu. She's the president of the Ghana Tourism Federation. They're speaking to Gift Anduapia on the Pulse a while ago. But let's bring in a legal practitioner and host of COVID and the Law on the Joy News channel. He joins us live. Samson Ladi Anyenene. We are grateful for your time here on Top Story. So give us an understanding to what it is that we're reading from the Ghana Tourism Authority. So the president last Sunday told us that there's a ban on public gathering all the way to the end of this month. Ban on public and social gatherings. Then now today the Ghana Tourism Authority is telling us that they've given the green light to drinking bars, restaurants and hotels to reopen. What exactly are we dealing with here?
Right. So on the powers given to the president under Act 1012, which is the Imposition of Restrictions Act, the president issued EI 64. Now, EI 64, the Imposition of Restrictions Act did not exempt hotels, did not exempt restaurants and drinking sports. But EI 64 did exempt hotels, a supermarket, a shopping mall, restaurant, hotel, or a drinking sport. And so that exemption covered them from the measures that were prohibited acts that if anybody engaged in, they could face 4 years to 10 years or 12,000 to 60,000. That is getting into conferences, workshops, funerals, festivals, political rallies, sporting events, sporting clubs, private parties, among others, and social gatherings, nightclubs and event centers, and so on and so forth. Now, you would discover that once that provision was made in the EI, then the EI went further to provide an exemption. And the exemption was to cover, as I said earlier, restaurant, a hotel, or a drinking spot. So on the face of it, when you hear about the release by the Tourism Authority, it will come at you as though some breaches are occurring and that there is an attempt to seek to vary the EI. Nobody can vary the EI except the president himself by another EI. Now, when he made the EI 64, it expired. Then he extended it with another EI 67. And then last Sunday, he announced that those measures have been extended further until the end of May. So from the exemptions regime, as I have indicated, it does appear that what has been suggested or directed by the Tourism Authority is not in conflict with the EI, except that I just heard somebody speak to you and say, oh, they are already in operation, except that they don't accommodate beyond 25. That is a clear violation of the law. The 25 exemption of participants or gathering is only for burials. It is not for funerals, it's for burials. If you are not doing a private burial, you cannot say, I have 25 people, so it is okay. You can't do that for a wedding or any other thing. But people don't seem to have understood it. So they think you can accommodate 25 people for meetings, for weddings, for other ceremonies. I think that would be wrong. And the hotels and these drinking spots that have been allowed, what it simply means is that how they have to operate must be an operation that will not accommodate 25 people, because the 25 people accommodation is only for private burials.
There seems to be some confusion with this, at least in my mind. There's a little bit of confusion because if we are not supposed to gather in these numbers, you've explained clearly that the 25 is just for private burial, as we've heard the president also say. But now, if drinking spots can open and they are supposed to observe social distances, there are churches also that can open and also observe social distancing. And that's the confusion for many at this point. Why would drinking spots open and then people can gather and others cannot open and gather and observe social distancing?
So that definitely is a question that we all need to explore going forward. But the point is that the law is very clear on its face that it gave an exemption. And if the president says that the measures have been extended, and if by that extension of the measures he implied and meant, I suppose today is Wednesday, is it? Mm-hmm. Then it means that the announcement on Sunday ought to have been accompanied by an EI by now. If there is no EI yet, it means everything the president said is not law. It means the extension has not actually kicked in because his word is not law. His word becomes law if he transforms it into an EI on the power of the Imposition and Restrictions Act. So we ought to be seeing the new EI and to see the letter of it, whether or not it is only an extension of those measures or the extension covers the exemptions that were granted as far as the operations in the exemptions regime in the Section 4 of the EI 64 are concerned. Otherwise, you can't bring in churches and other places, but it's an argument that anybody can make. But the truth is that they are not within the exemption regime.
Okay, so it means that with this directive from the Ghana Tourism Authority, that overrides what we heard when it comes to social gathering and all that from the president. Is that the case? Because that's the messages that we are getting from people asking.
Overriding. I think their statements will only be on the force of the EI. It cannot override an EI. So to the extent that what they say in their statement does not conflict or does not seek to amend or vary the provisions in the EI, it's fine. But if there is any portion of it that sounds as though it is getting into conflict, then you rather will have to obey the EI and disobey the tourism authority because it does not have the power to do any such thing under this regime.
Well, Mr. Samson Ladiayenene, we are grateful for the education on this matter. I am well educated at this point. He's the host of COVID and the Law on the Joy News channel. You know why you need to tune in. It's at 2 p.m. Every Sunday, and we get all the education on these legal matters relating to COVID-19 and the times that we are in. But this issue, Regis, we're hoping to raise the Ghana Medical Association on this matter. Later on Newsnight, we'll get to hear from the Drunkards Association because we're told that they were consulted and they have some directives on this, even though they are happy that they can start operating. They have some concerns they would want to raise as well. And then a virologist also on this matter. We'll get to hear what it means, the implications for this, because if people go to the drinking spot, get drunk, how are we hoping that they will be able to observe social distancing amidst being drunk and all? But let's bring in the Concerned Clergy Association of Ghana. We understand they already have some concerns regarding the opening of drinking mass. Bishop Prince Bennywood, a spokesperson for the Concerned Clergy Association of Ghana. He joins us live. We're grateful for your time here on Top Story, sir. So you've heard the lawyer explain to us what this is, because already they were in the exempt. That's how come they've been giving this green light. But the churches and religious activities and all are not part of that exempt. So what exactly are your concerns if the green light has been given to drinking bars, restaurants and hotels to reopen?
Okay, unfortunately, I didn't hear, the line wasn't clear, so I didn't hear what the lawyer said, but I can respond nevertheless. I don't think that the issue as to why the churches must not... Hello?
I'm listening to you.
Yes. I'm saying that I don't think that the issue has been explained very well as to why the authorities think that if the churches doesn't meet, there will be a kind of a flattening of the curve or a slowdown of infection or something. The point is that we should understand what the church is. The church gathering is a gathering of people who believe in God, the God who created the heavens and the earth. And because of that, when we gather, there is a great fear of God in our midst. And everything we do is done properly to meet the expectation of God. So the gathering of the church is not like any other gathering where people just go and make fun. No. It's a reverential gathering, a place where we go to gather because of God. Jesus said, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am in their midst. So we don't go to church to do entertainment. We don't go to church, to do comedy. We don't go to church just to go to and play around. We go to church together because we believe that we need something that can take us another week of existence on this earth, and that is God's word. Now, somebody will say, okay, but the word of God can be preached. But you see, it is the Bible that also tells us that we must not spare the gathering. We must gather together to glorify God's name. And when we gather, the weak becomes stronger and the poor becomes richer because in our midst, we share things in common. So people do not understand. The problem is that we have gotten the definition of the church wrong, and because of that, even pastors are confusing what the church is with other religions. So there's total confusion. It's because we are preaching wrong theology about what the church is. So some pastors even think that, well, it's normal if everybody is not gathering with us, because they don't even understand what the church is. They don't. And because of that, the authorities also don't understand. They have taken it on the surface and thinking that the gathering is just normal, praise and worship, hear God's word, go home. They don't understand the spiritual value the gathering of the people brings, and the hope the church has been giving to people in the midst of bad economic policies and corruption in our country for the centuries that we have laid as a nation. They don't understand.
So then, what exactly then is your concern that if the green light has been given to drinking bars and restaurants, same should be given to the churches? Is that the concern you're raising?
Yeah, because let me tell you something. You cannot you cannot trust somebody to comply with social distancing and other health guidelines in secular settings, but not trust the same person to do the same thing in religious setting. That is what they are not able to answer that question. Because the people who go to restaurants and sit and eat, the people who go to market, they are the same people who come to church. So how do you trust them that when they go to market, they will take care of themselves very well? When they go to restaurant, they will take care of themselves very well. When they sit in throttle, they will take care of themselves very well. But when they come to church, they cannot. So let's shut down the gathering of the church. They should give better reasoning. What they are doing so far is a knee-jerk reaction. It's something they are learning from outside. They have not sat down themselves to do proper thinking into why we should meet or we should not meet. This blanket decision is so wrong. We are not saying that if there's a crisis or a calamity or a pandemic or something, the church shouldn't make assertions, but they should tell us what, in their view, the scientific reason why they think we should not meet, but other gatherings can be accepted. When it is the same people who are allowed to meet somewhere but cannot be allowed to meet in church, well, they should come out properly.
Bishop, we're grateful for your time. That's Bishop Prince Bennywood. He's the spokesperson for the Concerned Clergy Association of Ghana. So we've talked the law, we've talked the religion. Let's talk the science at this point. Here on Top Story, virologist at the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, KCCR, Dr. Michael Owusu, joins us on the line. We're grateful for your time here on Top Story, sir. So let's look at the associated risks regarding this directive from the Ghana Tourism Authority, given the green light to drinking bars, restaurants, and hotels to reopen, but observe the social distancing. You trust that we are able to do this, considering the cases that we have at this point?
Yeah, good evening to you and good evening to all your listeners. So I have looked at the communication and look at the directives in that communication. I think that it's not advisable and not very much helpful in these times when we recently recorded 900 new cases, of which we know 500 came from a construction an industry where trying to do contact tracing is even as of now is becoming very difficult. Recently, we had 427 new cases, with close to 272 coming from Obuasi, where even contact tracing, following up cases and then testing is also becoming very difficult. Adding on to this, restaurant, drinking spots and hotels, and then bring in the directives, big things is going to complicate things for us. Social gathering is one risk factor that can really lead to a spike in transmission of this virus. And we don't want to touch that variable, because if you relax measures, and especially when you are not in the decline phase, there is a high likelihood that you may have active transmission of the virus, and you may not want to see that. You may put many vulnerable people at risk. And looking at drinking spots, people who drink, most of them may have some underlying conditions, including liver conditions that, on top of this, if they are also to become exposed or become infected with this virus, you will expect that their likelihood of dying of this disease may be higher than ordinary people. If you look at the mortality report presented by the public health director recently, he mentioned that one of the people who died had underlying liver condition. So I think that we are likely to put more people at risk when we begin to open up and relax these measures. I think that we have to still advise that they hold on with this, and then wait for us to at least go through the phases, put in all the measures, do all the education, especially when you are in the decline phase. This is where you want to begin to open up and then begin to allow some of these activities to go. I think that it's too early, and we may not be able to enforce these directives. It will be difficult for us to do, looking at what is already happening.
But you may call this silly, but there are those who say that when you're taking alcohol, I'm sure at some point, one of the myths surrounding this virus, we're told that if you're taking alcohol, it clears the virus from your throat. Possibly, wouldn't this help in any way?
Well, so that is a myth itself, and that is very wrong. That is something that I think that people have held this view for some time. And my fear is that if you open up this drinking spot, it's going to reinforce this further for many people who are in this business to now drink more and carry themselves and have people gathering around. And alcohol, of course, if people who take alcohol may rather be at high risk. They may have liver problems. They may have conditions that will only lead them to a place that you don't want them to be. So personally, I'm not happy with these new directives, and I only wish that this is never done now, because if you are gradually heating up to your peak, you are in a phase where many things are happening, many movements are happening. You don't want to add on. You want to go gradually. You want to measure it variable. You want to look at how things are happening. You want to see how the education is going, how the measures are being implemented before you move the next step. I only was wishing that they wait for the end of the month as the president directed. Let us assess the situation. Let us look at the transmissibility of the virus. Let us weigh this and see what is happening. If we think that our daily new cases are beginning to go down and things are already normalized, then we can begin to add on this other activity. If for now, I think it's too early, and I think it's not advisable for us to do that.
You call for a reversal of this directive?
Of course, we have to reverse this as quickly as possible and then begin to work with what we have. A lot on our hands now, from the construction firms, from the food chain cycle, where market women, a lot of things are going on, and a lot of effort is being put in by the Ministry of Health to do all the contact tracing, to do all the testing. Many things are happening. So you don't want to have additional headache of having drinking spots, hotels and restaurants coming to add up to the already complicated situation we are in now. So I think it's not good, and I wish that this is reversed as soon as possible.
We're grateful so much for your time. That's Dr. Michael Owusu. He's a virologist at the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, KCCR. And that's it for Top Story, brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion. Vodafone, the future is exciting. Ready? Gassim, the nation builder. Newsnight starts in a bit.
Hey, I say, mix the cement in the car.